Paint frames in video layers. Paint frames in video layers. Note please here now. For Photoshop versions earlier than Photoshop CC, some functionality discussed in this article may be available, by the way, only if you have Photoshop Extended, and Photoshop doesn't have a separate Extended offering, and all features in Photoshop Extended are part of Photoshop. So what about paint frames in video layers? Paint frames in video layers is meaning you can edit or paint on individual video frames to create an animation, by the way, and to add content or to remove unwanted details, in addition to using any brush tool. And you can also paint using the clone stamp and pattern stamp and healing brush or spot healing brush. And you can also edit video frames using the patch tool. And note and be careful here please now. Painting or using any other tool on video frames is often called rotoscoping, and also traditionally rotoscoping involves the frame-by-frame tracing of live action images for use in animation. And we have steps again here now. In the timeline or layers panel, you should select the video layer, and step number 2, move the current time indicator to the video frame you want to edit. Step number 3, optional, if you want your edits to be on a separate layer, you should choose layers, then choose video layers, then choose new blank video layer. And step number 4, select the brush tool that you want to use and apply your edits to the frame. Painting on a video layer is non-destructive, to discard the altered pixels on a specific frame or video layer, and then choose the restore frame or restore all frames command, and to toggle on and off the visibility of altered video layers. You should choose the hide altered video command or click the eyeball next to the altered video track in the timeline. And what about cloning content in video and animations frames? Cloning content in video and animation frames. In Photoshop, you can use the clone stamp and healing brush tools to retouch or duplicate objects in video or animation frames. You can use the clone stamp to sample content from one part of a frame, by the way, and the source, and paint it over another part of the frame or different frame, the target. And you can also use the separate document as the sampling source instead of a frame. And the healing brush includes options for blending the sampled content with the target frame, by the way. And note and be careful. You can also clone content with the spot healing brush and the patch tools. However, the clone stamp and the healing brush tools lets you store up to 5 samples in the clone source panel and set overlay, scaling and frame offset options. And after you sample content from a frame and paint with it, and then move to another frame, and the source frame changes relative to the frame you initially sampled from. And you can look in the source frame you first sampled, by the way, or enter a frame offset value to change the source to a different frame and relative to the frame you first sampled. And what about clone video or animation content? Clone video or animation content, we have steps. Step number 1. Should select clone stamp tool firstly, or healing brush tool, and then set the tool options you want. Step number 2, should select a video layer in the layers panel or timeline panel, and then move the current time indicator to the frame you want to sample. After that, open the image you want to sample. Step number 3, position the pointer in an open image or frame, and alt click if you use Windows, or option click if you use macOS to set the sampling point. Step number 4, to set additional sampling points, click each clone source button in the clone source panel. Step number 5, select the target video layer and move the current time indicator to the frame you want to paint. And if you want to paint on a separate layer, you can add a blank video layer, by the way, and make sure you choose the appropriate sample option to clone content onto the blank video layer. Step number 6, if you have set multiple sampling points, select the source you want to use in the clone source panel. Step number 7, do any of the following in the clone source panel. To scale or rotate the source that you are cloning, enter a value for width, or H for height, W for width, and H for height, or the rotation in the degrees. And to show an overlay of the source that you are cloning, select show overlay and specify the overlay options. And the clipped option restricts the overlay to the brush size, and deselect this option by the way to overlay the entire source image. And to move the source overlay to an offset position, you should to click Shift Alt drag if you use Windows, or Shift Option drag if you use macOS, to temporarily show overlay and deselect show overlay, and press Shift Alt if you use Windows, or Shift Option if you use macOS. Step number 8. You should drag over the area of the frame you want to paint, and its meaning painting on a video layer is non-destructive, and you can choose the restore frame or restore all frames command to discard the altered pixels on a specific frame or video layer, by the way. And what about a change frame offset for cloning or healing? A change frame offset for cloning or healing. In the clone source panel, to always paint using the frame you initially sampled from, select look frame. And after that, to paint using a frame relative to the frame you initially sampled from, enter the number of frames in the frame offset box. And if the frame you want to use is after the frame you initially sampled, enter a positive value. If the frame you want to use is before the frame you initially sampled, enter a negative value. So what about restore frames in video layers? Restore frames in video layers. By the way, you can discard edit image to frame video layers and blank video layers. And in the timeline panel, select a video layer and do one of the following. To restore a specific frame, you should move the current time indicator to the video frame, and then choose layer, then choose video layers, then choose restore frame. And to restore all the frames in a video layer or blank video layer, you should choose layer firstly, then choose video layers, then choose restore all frames. What about managing color in video layers? Managing color in video layers. By the way, in Photoshop you can paint on video layers using tools such as a brush tool or the color stamp tool, and if no color profile is assigned actually to the video layer, these pixels, by the way, edits are stored using the document files color space, and the video footage itself is left unchanged. And if the color space of the imported footage is different from the color space of your Photoshop document, you may need to make adjustments. For example, a standard definition video movie maybe is SDTV 601 NTSC, while the Photoshop document is in Adobe RGB. Your final exported, by the way, video or document might not have the colors you expect due to the color space mismatch. And before inverting a lot of time painting or editing videos layers, test your complete workflow to understand your color management needs and find the approach that works best for your workflow. And often you can solve a mismatch by assigning a color profile to the document that corresponds to the imported footage and leaving the video layer unmanaged. For example, with the standard definition video, you can leave the video layer unmanaged and assign the document the SDTV and Rec 601 NTSC color profile. In this case, the imported frame pixels are stored, by the way, directly in the video layer without color conversion. And conversely, you can assign the document's color profile to the video layer using the edited frame content option. You should select layers, then select video layers, then select interpret footage. This option, by the way, converts the pixel edits to the document's color space, but doesn't convert the colors of the video frames. And the convert to profile command, you should press edit, then select convert to profile, and also converts all pixel edits to the document's color space. However, using the assign profile command, you should press edit, then choose assign profile, and doesn't convert the pixel edits to a video layer. And you can't use the assign profile command with care, and especially when you have painted on or edit video frames. If the video layer has a color profile, applying the assign profile command to the document may cause a color space mismatch between the pixel edits and the imported frames. And Some combinations of video footage and document color spaces require color conversion, by the way. We have two options. A grayscale movie in an RGB CMYK or lab mode document requires color conversion, by the way. And using 8 or 16 BBC footage in a 32 BBC document requires color conversion.